fantasies of facing difficulties, steadily pouring their hearts into elevated parts. Gizmos and gadgets.
Between 1890 and 1920, Ashland, Kentucky became a quiet but essential corridor in the great industrial artery of the Ohio River. While the city's larger works, iron furnaces, machine shops, and oil refineries dominated the skyline, it was the smaller, more specialized factories that gave Ashland its enduring character. Here, immigrant craftsmen from as far afield as Albania, the coastal ports of Hath, and the island of Isalundar, set like a stone at the mouth of the Gedra River, south of Izmir, found steady work. These artisans brought skills honed over generations to industries most Americans never noticed. Gear housings milled for assembly lines in Detroit, precision couplings for Cincinnati's printing presses, and eventually finely machined elevator components bound for the commercial towers rising in Chicago. Carried by steamer and rail, these modest parts traveled farther than their makers ever had, tracing unseen lines of steel and brass across the continent. For Ashland, the Ohio River was more than water. It was a lifeline of opportunity, binding distant homelands to the new American craft. Rivers run to iron, the industrial heritage of the Ohio Valley, 1978.
Aslan led the blindfolded woman out of the car. She followed as he guided her forward onto the driveway. After a few steps, he stopped, facing her, the silence broken only by his voice.
Do you remember, Tamra, what I said I would do on the day that we married?
Her bright smile showed as she spoke.
You said you would find a way to take your father's factory and make it flourish again. Elevator parts. You told me, who needs us when one can buy cheaper from China?
She glanced at him.
But you have been successful, Aslan.
And what did I tell you I would do when we had that success?
She gasped and covered her mouth with her hand.
A house, a mansion. You promised.
He untied the blindfold and stepped aside, allowing her to see the house behind him.
Is it ours?
She asked, moving forward slowly up the gentle curve of the driveway. The house's broad windows reflected the late afternoon sun, white columns rising to frame a wide porch.
I had it built,
he said.
To surprise you.
She brushed tears from her cheeks with both hands, then turned from the house and threw herself into her husband's arms.
You have never failed to keep your promises,
she whispered. Kat sat on the edge of the cold chair as the door clicked shut behind her. Across the table, the detective settled in, a badge glinting at his belt.
Detective Carmody, Ashland PD,
he said, offering nothing more. He slid a folder toward her, then flicked his fingers toward a camera hanging from the ceiling near the wall.
Everything's being recorded,
he added.
Please state your full name for the record.
She hesitated.
Ekaterina Somel.
She said, spelling it out carefully for him.
But everyone calls me Kat,
she added, trying to smile. Detective Carmody studied her for a moment, the faint hum of fluorescent lights filling the silence.
Are you comfortable? Would you like some water?
He gently slid the bottle toward her.
Where were you this evening?
He asked, leaning slightly forward.
I was having dinner in D.C. with some friends,
she replied softly. He tilted his head.
D.C., as in Washington, D.C.? That's quite a drive.
Kat nodded.
Yes. My friend Mandy, her boyfriend, has his own airplane. He thought we'd enjoy having dinner in D.C.
Detective Carmody scribbled something, then looked up.
And your friend's full name?
Mandy Morrison,
Kat replied, taking a steadying breath before spelling it out.
And her boyfriend?
Kat's eyes flickered warily before she answered.
Walter Dutournier.
The detective's eyes widened.
Du Tournier? The Walter du Tournier?
He asked incredulously. Kat stiffened, her tone flat.
Yes, the same one.
His eyes lingered on hers, reassessing the conversation. Then he cleared his throat.
Where did you go in D.C.?
We went to Pineapple and Pearls.
Kat said.
Walter managed to get a table. He likes to make an impression wherever he goes.
Detective Carmody drummed his fingers lightly on the tabletop.
What time did you get back to Ashland tonight?
Kat hesitated, pressing her palms together on the table.
Dinner was at 8.
She managed.
We left D.C. a little after 10. Walter likes to talk with the staff after a meal. The flight's about an hour and a half.
Her throat tightened.
We got back shortly before midnight. It was just about midnight when we got to the house.
She squeezed her eyes shut, trying to block out the surge of memory. Red and blue lights splashed across the brickwork, the hush of neighbors pressing in, the open front door, and then, her stomach twisted, the impossibly quiet house beyond the threshold. Her breath came shallow and fast. Something cold prickled in her fingers. Detective Carmody said her name, distant now, as the lights and voices began to drown each other out. The table and chairs slid sideways, gravity tilting under her, and then everything went black. A faint but persistent beeping, and the smell of something sharp, antiseptic maybe, pulled Kat back from nothingness. Her eyelids felt heavy, reluctant to open, but a soft, unfamiliar voice coaxed her.
There we are. Back with us, Mr. Mell?
Kat turned her head. A willowy woman stood by the bed, dark hair coiled in a knot, rich dark skin striking against a pristine white coat. Her accent was unmistakably British. As she leaned closer, Kat glimpsed the neat lettering on her badge. Dr. Ormond.
Water?
The doctor asked. Kat nodded, and icy coolness soothed her mouth and throat.
What happened?
Kat managed, her voice rasping. Dr. Ormond's lips quirked into a reassuring, if slightly wry, smile.
You fainted, quite spectacularly, I'm told. Some people, when overwhelmed by extreme stress, simply shut down. It's the body's way of protecting itself. You gave yourself a 10-hour holiday from consciousness. Not common, but not unheard of.
She checked the IV line, then arched a delicate brow.
Look on the bright side. Should you ever suffer another shock of similar magnitude, you now have a reliable preview of your performance.
Kat tried to muster a smile for the doctor, but couldn't quite find it. Then memory hit her, sudden and raw. Her parents were dead, murdered while she was jet-setting it up in Washington, D.C. The images came in a rush, lights, voices, the impossible silence at home. Guilt and grief twisted together, tightening everything inside her. Dr. Ormond's gaze sharpened, picking up the quickening, shallow breaths, the sudden tightness in Kat's grip on the bedsheet. She reached out, her voice even softer now, almost meditative.
It's all right, Kat. Just breathe with me a moment. In through the nose. Good. Now out. I know it feels like too much. Your body remembers the danger, but you're safe here. Keep breathing just like that. No need to hold anything in, not now.
Dr. Ormond waited with her, a steady presence letting the silence become a shelter rather than a weight.
The humble intricacies of facing difficulties, steadily pouring their hearts into elevated parts. Every glance a question, all truths veiled by wealth. In rooms awash in gold delight, darkness grew heedless. Is she the treasure or the prey, caught by hidden secret?
Father will never understand. For him, The world is measured by the rhythmic clip-clop of a carriage horse on cobblestones or the feel of a good stallion beneath him. He was born to it, as was I, growing up in the stable-master's house, where the scent of hay and leather is the scent of home. But it was never my home. My heart was always in the sky. When the state offered to fund my pilot's training, it felt like being handed the key to a cage I hadn't realized I was in. Up there I can see all of Estolia at once, every village, every cove, every winding road. Down here we may be a nation without motor cars, a place where a journey from one coast to the other is a full day's event. But from the air I can cross it in minutes. It's more than just speed. It's a different kind of service, a different kind of freedom. Benzarek Zakarian. Inscrito.
A soft knock sounded at the door. Detective Carmody appeared, clutching a clipboard and a mug that steamed in the cool hospital air. He paused just inside, scanning Kat with something gentler than interrogation in his eyes. Dr. Ormond gave him a professional nod, then turned to Kat, offering a steadying squeeze of the hand and a soft,
"I'll be just outside if you need anything."
She vanished with a whisper of lab coat and sensible shoes, closing the door quietly behind her. Detective Carmody eased himself into the visitor's chair with a deliberate, tired motion. The chair gave a resentful squeak, protesting his bulk. He shifted, sighing quietly as his feet finally got a reprieve. Relief radiated upward, visible even in the way his shoulders settled. He set his mug on the little table, and for a moment, silence stretched comfortably.
You feeling all right?
He asked. None of the hard edge from before, just tired, practical concern. Kat took a slow, deliberate breath, letting it out as steadily as she could.
Yes, I'm ready.
Her voice was soft but sure, a practiced calm after the storm. Detective Carmody's relief was visible, the furrow in his brow eased, and for a fleeting second, the professional mask slipped, replaced by genuine empathy. He recalibrated, scanning his notes, organizing his thoughts with the careful deliberation of someone shifting from concern back to duty.
Thank you,
he said quietly. He tapped his clipboard once.
Let's start from the beginning. Tell me everything you remember about the night you got back.
Kat's gaze fixed somewhere in the near distance. Her words were clipped, mechanical.
I got home just after midnight. There were police cars, ambulances, fire trucks, lights everywhere. We pulled up to the house, and someone stopped us, asked who we were. I said I lived there. They wouldn't let me go inside. They told me both my parents were gone. Someone walked me to a cruiser. I remember the noise. Then someone said I needed to come downtown to answer questions.
She answered the detective's questions. Names, times, why she'd gone to DC, who was with her. Facts, facts, facts. Each one laid out with careful detachment, as though reading from someone else's script. He jotted notes in the margins, sifting her account for discrepancies. Eventually, the questions tapered off. Detective Carmody closed the folder with a quiet, tired snap and sat back, the silence between them growing thick. He studied Kat for a moment, as if weighing how much to tell her or how much she already knew.
Kat, I need you to understand something,
he said, voice gentler than before.
We don't think this was just a robbery gone wrong. The man who broke into your parents' house demanded access to the safe. When the security guard arrived in response to the silent alarm, he was shot first. Then your parents. We believe the killer was trying to cover his tracks. No witnesses.
He grimaced, glancing once at the folder as if it still might yield a safer truth.
I'm sorry, and I know it's a lot. But it looks planned. Professional.
Kat stared, shaking her head.
That can't be right. Why would anyone want to hurt my parents? My dad ran a factory, elevator parts, nothing more. It doesn't make sense.
Detective Carmody watched her carefully.
On paper, yes. The company's called Levitations, right?
He thumbed through his notes.
We found several foreign wire transfers connected to shell companies. Big sums, Kat. And your father's name came up in connection with an ongoing federal inquiry.
She blinked, stunned.
Inquiry? For what? He He made thousands of little metal brackets for motors, for gears. I've seen the machines. There's nothing there you could use for.
He lifted a hand, voice softening.
Sometimes components meant for one thing get repurposed for another. There are rumors your father's company's been used as a front to funnel specialty parts, possibly for bombs overseas. We don't have proof, but that's the kind of enemy who doesn't leave witnesses.
A tremor ran through Kat's hands. Everything she thought she'd known about her father pulled away, leaving only questions. The door opened, and Kat recognized her father's lawyer, Carter Elliott, briefcase in hand. He paused just inside, offering a polite but pointed nod.
Detective,
Carter said, voice calm and unyielding.
I'd like to speak with my client. If you have any further questions, you can direct them to me.
Detective Carmody's eyes narrowed, a flicker of resignation passing across his tired features. He closed his folder with a quiet snap, rose from his seat and gathered his mug.
Understood. I have your card, Mr. Elliott. Kat, if you remember anything else, let me know.
He hesitated by the door, then gave Kat a last searching look, more empathy than suspicion, before pulling the door shut behind him. The soft click seemed to settle the air. Carter let out a long, quiet breath. He moved deliberately, settling into the chair across from Kat. No dramatic sigh, no protest from the seat, just the quiet composure of a man who's weathered a few storms. He set his briefcase beside him and met Kat's eyes for a moment, hands loosely clasped.
If you'd like some water or to take a pause, just tell me,
he said, not quite businesslike and not quite familial, simply present.
You've been through more than anyone should have to handle in so short a span.
He hesitated, as if allowing her time to process his presence, then glanced briefly at an open notebook by his elbow.
I've been in contact with Walter du Tournier. He and your friend Mandy are making arrangements to get you out of the country for a while, just as a precaution. I don't want to alarm you, but things are complex, and it's best if you're less visible while I look into a few matters for you. I've also engaged a team of private investigators. Until we know more, your safety comes first.
He waited, watching her with quiet concern, studying her expression as if gauging both her strength and her breaking point. At last, his tone shifted, quieter, edged with something almost apologetic.
There is another matter,
Carter went on, voice softer.
Your father, he always meant to update his will now that you're nearly 21, but he never found the time. I'm afraid the terms as written are problematic. Unless you marry by your 21st birthday in about 8 months, everything will go to charity.
Betrayed by ink and seal, curtains fall, the mask remain, questions hanging unexplained, golden lies on midnight's tongue, hidden secrets never sung. Tiger stripes and painted claws, laughter rings with hidden flaws. Is she fierce by will or show? Only her shadow seems to know. A blank canvas, a work in progress, class-headed print and pampered no less. Evolved from cat to tigress, is this freedom or a
Sometimes I marvel at the subtle but significant differences between our Estolian horses and the Andalusians they gave rise to. Both can gradually lighten to a pure white over the years, a transformation that never fails to awe. But when it comes to passing on that striking trait, the breeds diverge in fascinating ways. With Andalusians, the inheritance pattern is clear. Grey is dominant. Breed a grey Andalusian, and you'll likely get grey offspring in predictable ratios. But Estolian greys, they're a different story. By all rights, breeding 2 greys should result in all grey foals. Yet, time and again, we've seen pairs that, by all logic, should only produce grey offspring, instead surprise us with a vibrant bay or black or roan coat. It's as if the usual rules don't quite apply, as if something or someone else has a hand in it. I've often wondered if perhaps Deity intervenes, guiding the traits to emerge just when a particular horse is destined for a specific rider. It's an idea that feels right, somehow, in a land where our horses are more than transportation. They're a living link to our history, our future, and perhaps to something greater than ourselves. Gregorio Zakarian, Stable Masters Inscrito.
The faint hum of the hairdryer buzzed steadily, punctuated only by the occasional squeal of scissors or the murmur of gossip. Kat sat in the waiting chair, her head tilted back, draped with the slick black cape, as the stylist carefully painted fiery orange and deep black stripes into her hair. She closed her eyes, trying to keep her thoughts on the mundane task, in reality a canvas for the chaos to come. Mandy hovered, checking the stylist's brushwork with the critical eye of someone who's watched far too many makeover shows.
Montrose won't know what hit him,
She gushed.
This is going to be epic. Honestly, Kat, I can just see you as a jungle cat. Wild hair, killer nails, and that smoky eye you never let me do. Forget boring. This is going to be your look. Trust me, Montrose is going to go wild.
Mandy was already scrolling through her feed, luminous with anticipation.
If you think this is wild, wait until you see the shoes I found for the engagement party.
She blurted.
Mrs. Walter du Tournier. Can you imagine it? Me, finally. Front row at the Palma Yacht Show, shopping weekends, island hopping like I've always dreamed.
Her laugh was musical, oblivious. Kat tried to smile. She watched the foils being folded into her hair, tiger stripes blooming under practiced hands. Across the room, sunlight glinted on rows of bottled dye, amber, gold, onyx, auburn, reminding her of the confetti of promises swirling in the air around her. Mandy's voice spiraled on.
And it'll be perfect. You and Montrose and me and Walter. Best friends, double dates every Friday, matching summer linens. Oh, you'll see, Kat. You're going to love him. Trust me, Walter only fixes people up when he's got a real plan.
The words echoed, hollow as the salon's tiled floor. Kat pictured Montrose, whom she'd met only twice barely, Walter's easy charm suddenly chilling in hindsight. She remembered the flight to Mallorca, Walter's hard stare, the casual way he dismissed her questions with a joke or a shrug, the glint of calculation that seeped out when he thought she wasn't looking. The hairdryer's whir grew louder, filling the silence she couldn't quite break. On the surface, color and laughter. Underneath, the sense she was being painted into someone else's fantasy. Kat slid over to the manicure station, still encased in her black cape. The manicurist, Sonia, with neon pink braids and a stack of silver bangles, offered a quick grin.
Tiger stripes, huh? You're braver than I am,
She said, popping the cap off the first pot of lacquer. Mandy hovered, phone in hand, flicking between Pinterest boards and Instagram inspiration reels.
Make them fierce!
She commanded, thrusting her phone at Sonia.
More like this. See the accent nail? That'll drive Montrose wild. Trust me. First impressions last forever.
Sonia brushed on a line of neon orange, then traced a sleek, sharp black slash.
You got a big date?
She asked, more curiosity than interest.
Bigger than that,
Mandy answered for her.
Kat's about to meet her future husband. Well, prospective husband. Walter says he's loaded, worldly, totally smitten, even though they've barely met. This is basically her debut.
Kat flexed her hand, watching the stripes take shape, feeling ridiculous and a little exposed.
I don't suppose I get a say?
She managed, aiming for humor.
Girl, if you don't want him, I'll marry him myself.
Sonia joked, laughter bright and easy. Mandy rolled her eyes.
You're impossible. Walter wouldn't go to these lengths for just anybody. He's got an eye for talent and opportunity.
Kat stared at her nails, bright and wild and very much not her. The fluorescent lights flickered against the shiny stripes, and for a second the world narrowed to heat and color and the too sweet scent of nail polish. Underneath the hum and laughter, a shiver ran along her spine. All this attention, all this theater, was it supposed to make her feel powerful or just prepared for auction?
Almost done.
Sonia said, pushing Kat's hands under the ultraviolet light to dry them.
You'll be ready to take on the world. Or, at least, the next party.
Perfect timing.
Mandy chimed.
They'll be waiting outside. That's your cue, Kat.
Kat drew in a slow breath, flexing her new claws, and tried to imagine herself fierce. But as she gathered her bag and stood, her nerves tangled with the bright promise of the polish. Jungle cat, she thought, or cornered animal. Cat spotted Walter waiting on the tarmac beyond the sliding doors, sunglasses perched atop his head, phone glued to his ear. Mandy hurried ahead, calling out a breezy,
"Play nice."
as she beelined toward Montrose and the waiting rolls. Walter glanced up, scowling at the interruption, but his frown vanished when he caught sight of Cat, her hair a riot of orange and black, nails slashing the air as she gripped her bag strap.
"You look very Mallorca,"
he said dryly, eyeing her up and down.
"Hope you didn't tip the stylist too much."
She smirked.
It's all the rage for trophy wives, I'm told.
He gave a short laugh that turned into a cough. As he led her around the long nose of his squat, wedge-shaped airplane, she caught the fleeting wince, a hand rubbing his neck, jaw working as if biting back a headache.
"Ready to learn how the other half lives?"
Walter asked, opening the cockpit door with a little more force than necessary.
"It's simple if you're not afraid of heights, small spaces, or, sudden engine failure."
Is there a checklist for that?
Cat replied, already feeling her pulse spike as she climbed into the hot, close interior. The seat still smelled faintly of fuel and aftershave. Walter moved slower than usual, eyes squinting against the dying sun. He began his safety spiel, a little too fast, stumbling over the part about oxygen and emergency procedures.
"Don't worry,"
he said, pausing to massage his temples.
"Just keep your eyes on the attitude indicator. Don't get cute and, touch buttons or anything."
She watched as he reached for a bottle of water, missed and grimaced as if the overhead lights were stabbing into his brain.
Long day?
She prompted. He forced another laugh.
"Just a headache. It comes and goes. It's the stress of being brilliant."
Cat sat quietly beside him, jungle cat stripes burning on her fingers, watching the man who always craved center stage shrink, just a hair around the edges. The engine revved, the world outside shrinking to runway, wing, and sky. In the golden hush before takeoff, she wondered what she was being launched into, adventure, opportunity, or something far more dangerous.
Chrome and glass, perfume haze, stories swirling through the blaze. She sits beneath the morning light, a metamorphosis in plain sight. Stripes won't hide the ticking clock, gilded trap, a fortune's lock. Still I'll fight, one truth confesses, I'll survive these flying lessons.
The history of Estolia is filled with unlikely connections, improbable matches, and extraordinary circumstances that bring together the couples who then find great happiness. I do not believe that I ever once understood what much of the capitulos were trying to convey until I, too, was faced with my Kaylee. The greatest comfort is knowing that every soul knows its soulmate. Kenzie was a visual maelstrom of color and character. I think that just as I was given to know that she was right for me, so too, all Estolians are given the same sureness within when they meet their soulmates. Nicodemus Luciano Zakarian, Capitulo 89.
One moment the airplane was gliding smoothly. The next it pitched violently downward, sending a raw jolt of terror through Cat's stomach before Walter's delighted laugh cut through the cabin.
"You can't ignore the instruments,"
he said, grinning.
"Because a fender bender in an airplane is a closed casket in waiting."
Walter kept jerking her focus back to the controls, first with sharp turns, then steep climbs, and now a sudden drop in altitude. The airplane, a King Air, was originally configured for parachuting, before Walter had it converted into the setting for a high-stakes action scene in one of his films, Disaster. She regretted ever agreeing to come to Mallorca with Mandy and Walter.
It's not like you're beautiful.
Walter cut into her thoughts.
The only way to sell you and your need is to focus on the money.
She began, but he cut her off.
You can't do it anyway, Kat, not without making it sour.
She frowned at him.
Making what?
The piano. You know, nobody can tune a piano like a Yorkshire Terrier.
He sighed, sounding mournful.
Take the yoke,
he said, releasing the controls. As she fumbled to grab the yoke, panicking, he started to chuckle.
Don't worry, kitten,
he said.
I promise you'll get one, and it will taste great.
Get what?
She asked, confused.
An umbrella. Haven't you been paying attention?
He hissed the last word. She looked over at him, wondering what he was talking about. His expression was deadpan, lower lip thrust forward, the look he wore when he couldn't be bothered to feign interest. He was giving her that look now, as if she was of no account and he did not mind if she knew. She grew uneasy when he did not look away.
Of course I've been paying attention,
she said.
But...
She faltered, not because he interrupted her, but because his expression itself was beginning to unnerve her. She reached out one trembling hand and pressed it against his neck. There was no life, no pulse. He wasn't breathing. She recoiled at the thought of touching him, yet she reached up and closed his eyes. She could not think with those empty orbs fixed upon her. Her light-hearted jaunt was now a disaster in the making. She sifted through the last 2 hours of Walter's haphazard lessons, but nothing he'd shown her touched on landing, only flight. She was alone in an airplane over the Mediterranean, with no idea how to get back to Earth. She looked again at Walter. His lower lip still glistened with saliva. In that moment, she hated him. Hated everything he told her over the last 10 or 15 minutes of his life. Hated him for his contempt. Get a grip, she admonished herself. Focus. She drew in a deep breath, then with careful precision, she lifted the headset from Walter's head and fitted it over her own. Only after that did she turn her eyes to the gauges. The airplane, at least, seemed to have plenty of fuel. What she needed to know was simple: where the airplane was headed, whose airspace she was in, and if she risked straying into air lanes already occupied by traffic or countries that might treat a lone foreign woman with suspicion, if she could even manage a landing at all. She thought they were approaching the small island that Walter called Pequeño, but she wasn't sure. She remembered how cautious he was to avoid it on the first leg of their flight. To the south lay Algeria, a complete mystery to her. She only knew that it was in North Africa, not exactly friendly territory for an unaccompanied girl from Kentucky. She considered turning the airplane back to Ibiza, but decided against it. It was a small island, relatively speaking, and if she missed it, she would be headed for either Morocco or the mainland. It was best, she thought, to try to make her way back to Mallorca. With a snort of humor, she pulled out her smartphone. The idea that this little piece of glass and circuits could somehow help her land an airplane struck her as absurd enough to make her grin. There were places where the internet worked, even when the phone itself could not. The problem was that her phone showed no service at all. The fleeting hope ebbed away, and she found herself weighing the same choices again: turn back toward Ibiza or swing north for Spain. Some of the issues over the last several decades came to mind, particularly the use of airplanes as terrorist weapons. If she blundered into a country with a powerful military presence, she feared they might shoot her out of the sky. Mallorca seemed to make the most sense. She glanced at the clock on her phone and set a timer. 2 hours. If she had not found the island by then, she would turn north. The European mainland was impossible to miss, though she doubted she had enough fuel to reach as far as Italy. 10 minutes later, she saw a large island ahead of her. It was far too soon for it to be Mallorca, and the shape was wrong. No sweep of coastline, no sprawl of Palma on the western shore. She told herself it must be Pequeño, though it seemed larger than she remembered Walter describing. If they had cell towers there, she might at least get a signal. With what little she'd learned, she could try to hold the airplane in a slow circle and use her phone to summon help.
Wings of love, oh cage of men, lift me high, then drop again. All I wanted, safe directions. All I got were flying lessons.
She wonders why Walter's gone. She's on her own in the air. She's all alone. She lost her pilot in the air, stumbled upon restricted airspace, fear and hope.
In the modern world of instant communication and personal cell phones with more computing power than the first spacecraft to reach the moon, Estolia's ability to remain hidden in plain sight was bound to deteriorate. I have often wondered if the crisis that arrived with this stage of our technological maturation was inevitable, coincidental, or deliberate. Having reached no firm conclusion, I can only leave it to Orion and those who come after to unravel the mystery. Nicodemus Luciano Zakarian, Capitulo 89.
About an hour later, she managed to circle the airplane around what appeared to be a massive palace on one promontory in the center of the island. The sight of a red helicopter in the distance didn't surprise her. As an airplane flying through their airspace without contact, she must seem like a threat. She felt ridiculous as she pulled up a search page, hunting for instructions on how to get the radio working so she could speak to the helicopter. She split her focus between the scraps of Walter's recent flying lessons and the instructions she was piecing together from the internet about the radio. To use the radio, the most important thing was having the correct frequency. By the time a second helicopter joined the first, the static in her ear snapped into an irate male voice. She followed the web page's instructions, and within moments she was speaking into the mic, her voice as calm as she could manage.
Am I speaking with the individual in the red helicopter, or are you the one in the silver helicopter?
A pause. Then the same irate voice from before crackled through the static.
Neither, mademoiselle. You are speaking with the individual at the Amador Airport on the island you are currently circling. I am in contact with the pilots of both helicopters. Be advised that any hostile action on your part will force the military forces of this nation to respond. Will you explain your presence in restricted airspace and your failure to respond on approved frequencies?
Lovely accent or not, it was clear this man was furious.
I'm extremely sorry,
she said.
I really don't know how to work this radio. I've had exactly 90 minutes of flying lessons.
Well, only if you included the last 10 minutes of gibberish before Walter stopped being Walter.
I did learn enough to circle the airplane over a cell tower, and I've been Googling how to get the radio to work. My next trick was going to be figuring out how to land.
Silence stretched across the static. When the voice returned, it had shed its anger, replaced by something more deliberate and incredulous.
Am I to understand, mademoiselle, that you are flying an aircraft after only 90 minutes of instruction and consulting the internet on how to land it? How exactly did you come to be in this situation?
Kat's eyes drifted briefly to Walter before sliding away again. She remembered Dr. Ormond, her crisp British voice and no-nonsense air, telling her with wry certainty that she was the type of person whose brain would take a time out only after a crisis was resolved. It had been Ormond's blunt verdict that now Kat was forewarned she could be ready for it when it happened again. For the moment, she would remain in control. Once she was safely on the ground, she could disintegrate.
My friend, who was giving me an unofficial flying lesson, has died. About 80 minutes into the flight, he started to make no sense at all. He was spouting nonsense. He declared that dogs were good at tuning pianos and assured me I'd be able to get some tasty umbrellas. Then he stopped speaking, and then he stopped breathing. There's no pulse. I am very sorry for invading your airspace. I learned quickly, so I might be able to land the plane if you instruct me, but nobody else here can do it.
More silence met her words.
What is your name, mademoiselle?
My name is Ekaterina Zomel, but please call me Kat.
And your unlucky friend?
Walter Dutournier.
His death would be headline news. She wished she had turned down the flight. He had only been trying to impress Mandy.
The billionaire?
The voice broke in, sharper this time. Dutournier was a billionaire playboy known across Europe. After her confirmation, he said more gravely,
I see, mademoiselle. At this point in time, I have been in communication with the pilots of the 2 helicopters. We have discussed several possibilities for rescuing you, and a 3rd helicopter is already on its way. Once it arrives, we will review the options with you and determine together which course of action you feel most comfortable attempting. Despite Hollywood's dramatization of situations like yours, mademoiselle, the truth is that the number of failed landings with fatal consequences far exceeds successful attempts. It is not the course we prefer. We will not abandon the idea entirely, but will keep it in reserve as the final resort.
A soft chuckle drifted into her headset, so out of place she almost wondered if she had imagined it. His voice turned brisk again before she could ask.
I will be putting one of our best aviation experts, Benzarik Zakarian, on this channel. He will determine how much time you have and guide you into a safer flight path, so that should you crash, it will not be into the seat of power of this nation. We are understandably reluctant to leave you circling our center of government.
A new voice came over the headset, calmer and a touch lower.
Ekaterina Zomel?
Please call me Kat.
She said. There was the faintest pause, then...
Then you must call me Ben.
After that, his tone grew brisk, already nudging her toward course corrections, as if the two of them had been speaking for much longer. Following Ben's detailed instructions, within 10 minutes she had the airplane flying at a higher altitude, with the autopilot set in a holding pattern just off the southern coast of Estolia. Once all of those tasks were finished, she listened to Ben's ideas with a mixture of horror and fascination. One possibility was for her to use one of the parachutes stored in the cabin, leftovers from the airplane's cinematic past. The trouble was, she had no training in using them, and she could not even be sure whether they were real equipment or only props. Another idea was to bring a helicopter close enough for her to climb onto a rope ladder. The airplane had started its life as a parachuting craft, complete with a wide sliding side door, and Walter had added extra clamp points and stocked proper safety gear when he bought it. That made the transfer technically possible, but just the thought of dangling at this height made Kat's stomach begin to roil. The third option, and the one they were considering trying first, since there was, they pointed out, enough fuel to last 3 or more hours, was to try to have a licensed pilot climb aboard her airplane so that he could land the airplane on the island. That one, Ben explained, was preferable as they would then save the airplane and be able to recover Walter's body. They would not have to deal with an airplane crashing and perhaps injuring spectators on the ground. Kat tried to imagine another human clambering onto the plane in mid-air. The idea made her pulse spike. It sounded terrifying.
Kat, we are ready to have our pilot join you.
Ben, I don't want anyone risking their life for me. Wouldn't it make more sense for me to try landing the plane myself? That way, I'm the only one in danger.
Take it easy, Kat.
Ben said, his voice soothing.
Harmon will be wearing a parachute. If he tumbles off, he will use it, and we will decide whether to try again or move to another option. He is also bringing a parachute for you. Trust us, Kat. We will get you to the ground safely.
As the green and purple helicopter approached with a man dangling from a rope ladder, Kat double-checked the autopilot settings. She then donned one of the emergency harnesses, secured herself to a clamp point, and slid open the side door, just as Ben had instructed. The airplane, once a star in Walter's films, was now the centerpiece of a real-life rescue scene. The green and purple helicopter hovered closer, and Kat could see a figure dangling from a cable, secured by a harness. He wore a helmet and moved with the practiced steadiness of someone who had done this before. As Harmon braced against the wind, he clipped his harness to a metal loop on the airplane's body, then detached from the cable. Kat felt a surge of relief at the sight of him transferring safely. He climbed into the back of the airplane and hauled the sliding door shut. cutting back on the roar of air. With the noise reduced, he moved forward to the front, took in the situation at a glance, and then strapped himself into the seat beside Walter's body, ready to land the airplane.
Cat?
He said, taking his crash helmet off and grinning at her. She smiled back.
Yes. And your name is Harmon?
Yes.
He said, starting to examine all of the dials and gauges. He glanced back at her.
You are very good at explaining what you see and what you are doing. I'm impressed. Especially now that I see how accurate your descriptions were. We will head back to Estolia and land at the Amador airport. Once there, we will be in touch with the authorities in Mallorca.
Kat felt her hands start to tremble violently. She tried to explain to the man at her side that she was only good in a crisis, but the world started to press in on her, and she knew what to expect as she slumped over in a dead faint.
Promise placed within my hand, a glow no shadow can deny, a truth that burns and will not die. Faith in the aura guiding me near.
Blind faith, in the absence of evidence, is not what Deity asks of Estolians. Faith is asked of each Estolian that they should believe they will receive the blessings that have been so abundantly given to those who came before. Faith in the accuracy of blessings bestowed, faith in all that Deity promises. Lazarus Ricarden. Capitulo 84.
A steady beep, beep, beep pulled her from the blackness. When she opened her eyes, she saw a pleasant but unfamiliar room. The sound continued until she spotted her cell phone and silenced the alarm. Looking around a little more, memories of the eventful flight that ended in disaster trickled back. She knew what had happened. She had blacked out once help arrived, her usual response after a crisis. It struck her as incredibly anticlimactic to collapse just as the final rescue took place. The door opened, and a man walked into the room. She stared at him in amazement. He was absolutely beautiful. His hair was a deep russet, his eyes a startling aqua. His smile, when he saw she was awake, only heightened the effect. He was the most attractive man she had ever met.
"You are awake?"
he said warmly.
"I am very glad to see that you have rejoined us."
He crossed the room and sat in the chair beside her bed.
"The physician believes you are one of those individuals who respond to a crisis in one way, but whose body exacts a penalty once the danger passes. You have been unconscious for 16 hours.
Yes,
she said.
Dr. Ormond in Kentucky told me to expect this if I ever faced another crisis. Last time it took me a full day to feel like myself again.
She felt weaker now, as if her body had demanded a higher price for surviving. This would not be any different, only harder.
I am Ben, or more formally Benzerik Zakarian. I helped you from the air tower.
His smile was warm and sympathetic.
Thank you so much, Ben, for being so helpful. I couldn't have done it without you.
There has been a media firestorm over the death of Walter du Tournier,
Ben said.
Do they know what happened?
As I understand it, they say he had a burst blood vessel in his brain. We have already transported him and his airplane back to Mallorca.
She should be asking further questions, but the familiar lassitude stole over her, her eyelids growing heavy. Ben stared at the woman asleep in the bed before him. He had been on his way to meet Kelsey Amador, one of the young women his family considered might be an acceptable match, but then he was diverted to the airfield to help rescue some crazy American who thought Google could teach her to fly. He would ask his father to share his regrets with the Amador family. Kelsey Amador was not the right woman to be his Kaylee. Ekaterina Zomel brightened the entire room with an aura he never in a million years expected to see. It pulsed like a strobe light in time with her heartbeat. He watched in fascination as she drifted to sleep, the pulse of her aura slowing in time with the beating of her heart, bringing a quiet peace to his soul. He was a Zakarian, but from what he knew or thought he knew, the aura was reserved for those in the higher echelons, where unions carried heavy religious and political weight. His own marriage would matter to no one but himself. Like all other men of Estolia, he planned to wed at the age of 30. He never expected Deity to intervene in something so personal. The door opened, and his sister came into the room. She glanced at the readouts from the machine hooked up to the girl, and then efficiently detached everything. Once the machine was ready to wheel out of the room, she turned her attention to him.
She will recover, brother,
She reassured him. He nodded. Then, after a heartbeat of hesitation, he said,
I see her aura.
Misty's eyes flicked from him to the girl and back again.
You do? Did your Bendalora say you would see an aura?
He shook his head.
The blessing was vague. I always thought it was the usual sort of thing. Live the promise, reap the rewards, serve the nation. Nothing remarkable. I am nobody special. So why would it hold anything more for me?
She crossed the room to give him a hug. When she pulled back, she grabbed his hand and led him over to an arrangement of chairs in the room. Once they were seated, she said to him,
I do not like to hear you say you are nothing special.
Her eyes searched his, delving for answers.
What makes you say that anyway?
He looked away from his sister, knowing she had an uncanny insight into most people she met. His gaze drifted to the aura of the beautiful woman asleep in the room.
The
words faltered, lost before he could shape them. He glanced at Misty, then let the unfinished thought die.
I just always feel as if there are two types of people in Estolia. Those who are special and those who are not. I am definitely not special.
Misty laid a hand on his knee, pulling his attention back to her. They were close in age, but she had already been married for 10 years, and he often thought of her as much older since she always seemed so wise. Though he was the firstborn, the adoption of 4 girls left him with 3 elder sisters. Misty was nearest to him in years, and the one he felt closest to as well. The expression on her face communicated the steadfast wisdom he felt was missing, and would always miss, within his own character.
Ben, I do not think that Deity places us into categories like that. It would not be in keeping with the teachings of Zacharias, but even if it were true, you would be counted among the special. If our history had flowed along a different path, you would be preparing to be king.
He flushed. It embarrassed him to be reminded that, in another reality, he was the heir apparent.
Deity did not so decree,
he said.
True, brother. I think our father had enough to cope with in having 7 children.
She grinned at him.
Has the aura ever been wrong?
He looked again at the sleeping woman. Her extraordinary glow brightened the entire room. Misty gave a bark of laughter.
You are asking the wrong person. If you need religious counsel, go speak with Cousin Zeke.
"40 minutes later, Ben entered the temple. He had completed his acolyte year, the mandatory period between ages 18 and 30, when all Estolian men study the teachings of Zacharias, along with the history of the nation. After his marriage, he could opt for another year at the elder level. Initially resentful of the acolyte requirement, he had become fascinated within a week of starting his studies. He now knew he was likely to pursue the elder level, driven to pass the significance of seeing the aura of the enchanting American. His cousin Zeke was in his office in the temple. As he entered the office, Ben recalled that he had originally set up this meeting to discuss a liaison with Kelsey Amador.
You have informed Kelsey's family?
Zeke asked. Ben had to wonder how the Keeper always seemed to know things that were locked up in the hearts and minds of the inhabitants of Estolia.
I have, cousin,
he said.
Have a seat, Ben.
Why have I been gifted with the aura?
He asked once he was seated. Zeke laughed softly, shaking his head.
You are a direct descendant of the firstborn son of Zacharias. The potential has always existed. What matters is remembering that the aura is there to help you recognize the dictates of deity. Kelsey Amador would never have triggered it, but nearly all the brides from beyond Estolia are identified with the aura. How else would a Zacharian, or any descendant of Zacharias, know that a woman is right for Estolia? The aura was necessary to guide you, to show that she is a true daughter of Estoliana.
Is the aura ever wrong?
He had to know.
You read the capitulos. Was it ever wrong in any of those?
Of course it was not, but those are all about the Streyaron.
The king, the keeper, and the two oldest sons of the king were always known as the Streyaron, men with the greatest concentration of power in Estolia.
I do not recall learning as much about other descendants of Zacharias who saw the aura.
There has never been a time, Benzeric, that the aura was wrong. Do you doubt that you have met your Kaylee?
He shook his head. He had no doubts whatsoever.
Is such sureness typical?
He had to know. Zeke's smile grew broader.
If you feel as though the universe will crash to a halt without her, that no other woman could possibly compete, that you would go to the ends of the earth, do whatever it takes, up to and including abduction, to fulfill your destiny and her destiny at your side, then what you are feeling is typical.
The path was written, stars above, faith in the aura, bound with love.
Beneath a foreign watchful sky, lost in shadows far from shore, seeking answers, wanting more. No map to guide, no path to find, just this feeling stranded.
The hedonistic self-absorption I saw on the rich playgrounds of planet Earth, like Mallorca and Ibiza, stands in sharp contrast to the way Estolians give themselves to family, so often at the expense of self. Gregorio says the contrast is necessary, that without our neighboring islands as glaring examples, Estolians might forget why their land feels rare. Once he pointed this out, I knew he was right. Wraith Zacharian, Enscrido.
She woke, refreshed. Her muscles no longer taut as she stretched. A yawn escaped her, and she looked around the strange room, taking in the details clearly for the first time. Though subtle, everything from the textured fabric lining the walls to the intricately carved crown molding bespoke of wealth. The 2 weeks she spent in Mallorca with Walter and Mandy got her used to living at a level of wealth that was quite obscene. But even he did not have the kind of understated but undoubted wealth of this room. Unlike the obscene displays she had seen, this room radiated a quiet elegance. The thick gold leaf decorations covering nearly every surface in Walter's house had given her a distaste for the color. If something was gaudy or ostentatious, Walter had it. This room, though, was clearly furnished with an eye for taste that far surpassed the sheer expense. She was still studying the tapestries and richly polished furniture when a knock sounded, and the door pushed inward. A beautiful woman with bronze hair stepped in, a toddler balanced on her hip. She smiled warmly at Kat.
"Hey there,"
she said softly, her voice carrying a familiar American lilt.
"Hope you don't mind. Tiernan will get into anything if I leave him even a moment, so I thought I had better bring him."
I don't mind at all.
Kat reassured her.
I'm Kat.
"I'm Callie."
She said with an easy grin.
"And this is Tiernan."
Kat's gaze drifted to the boy, his little hands curling into his mother's hair.
Where am I?
"This is the North Tower room,"
Callie said, glancing around as if to remind herself of it too.
"My husband's uncle said you should have it, and what he says usually ends up being the final word. He's the boss, after all."
But why put me in your best room? I might break something or smudge it.
Callie crossed to the bed and set Tiernan down beside Kat. The boy immediately started crawling toward her, his little hands reaching for anything within range. With a smile in her voice, Callie added,
This is only one of our guest suites. It isn't really among the best rooms in the palace, but Zeke was adamant that this was the right place for your stay.
Palace?
Kat remembered the palace she had circled. Callie chuckled.
Here in Estolia, we tend to put guests in the palace. It's the only thing that makes sense since we don't have any hotels. We do have a guest house in El Chicsonia, but that's rarely used, and not at all convenient to the palace.
I've never heard of Estolia.
Kat admitted. She frowned, remembering the conversation she'd had with Walter. They'd flown the ferry route to Ibiza from Palma, because the Pequeño government was picky about who entered their airspace. They hadn't landed at Ibiza since Walter wanted to get back to Mandy and because he was already tired. It was not long after they'd turned away from Ibiza that he stopped making sense.
Is Estolia near Pequeño?
She asked.
Pequeño is one of Estolia's domains.
Callie explained.
It's a small island northeast of the main one.
I didn't realize that there was more than just Pequeño in this direction.
Callie laughed.
Estolia is one of those nations that just isn't well known. It is south of the normal ferry routes, and it is restricted airspace, so very few even notice it exists. The waters around Estolia are hazardous with submerged rocks, so it's one of those places that people just don't go, since it's not that interesting.
People speak English here?
She asked, remembering the way that the first person she spoke with on the radio called her Mademoiselle and sounded more French than Spanish or English. By this point in their conversation, the toddler had succeeded in crawling into Kat's lap. He snuggled close to her and started to hum softly to himself. Callie shook her head.
Nearly everyone in Estolia is bilingual,
she explained.
I'm from the United States myself. I was living in Phoenix until I met my husband.
She smiled.
I haven't been back since then.
The toddler on her lap looked up and said something in a language she'd never heard before. Vaguely reminiscent of Spanish, but more musical. Poetic gibberish, Kat thought.
نعم يا حبيبي, هذا صحيح.
When Callie responded in kind, the boy looked at Kat.
English?
She smiled.
Yes, I speak English.
He glanced from his mother to her, then grinned.
Okay.
He's pretty advanced for his age, isn't he?
Kat observed. Callie nodded, a wide grin on her face.
Leon's father and uncle both say it's typical for Estolian children, since they're all raised bilingual, more or less.
They're all taught English and Estolian?
Kat guessed.
Heavens no.
Callie shook her head.
Nearly every family has at least one member from another country, so usually their language is the second language. Frequently it is French, English, or Spanish, but I believe that there are as many as 42 unique languages currently in use in Estolia.
How large is Estolia?
Kat wondered. She knew Mallorca was the largest island and Formentera the smallest, but she was not sure how large the satellites were. None of them seemed big enough to hold a palace and a population with 42 languages. Still, when she thought back to her adventure, Estolia had seemed far larger than Ibiza.
Estolia is second only to Mallorca,
Callie said with a grin.
How is that possible?
Kat was so excited when Mandy invited her on this adventure. She had studied up on the region they would be visiting and practically had the map of the islands memorized. Only one of the maps had been different from the rest, showing Pequeño and indicating the presence of dangerous rocks in the region. She had been fascinated by the entire Mediterranean ever since she was in the first grade, and her teacher, Mrs. Bishop, spoke about Roman and Greek mythology.
Estolia is like the lost continent of Atlantis, though it's definitely not a continent. It's simply not interesting to the rest of the world, so nobody really does much research into it.
A tap sounded on the door, and when it was pushed open, the boy on her lap said happily,
Daddy.
The man who entered was dressed in a dark shirt and trousers, complemented by a beautiful cape. He wore two additional curiosities, a thick, ornate crown and a scabbard strapped around his hips, complete with a sword.
Darling,
Callie said.
Did I forget the time?
He grinned.
Yes, you did.
He entered, followed by a man in an elaborate robe. Both approached the bed. The little boy on Kat's lap grinned at his father, babbling rapidly in his native language before adding,
English.
Leon looked at him solemnly,
كل مرحبا ترنان.
replied in the same tongue, then lifted his gaze to her.
Good morning.
Good morning.
She said. Before she could reply, there was a faint tap before the door opened again. Would she ever get a moment alone to shower and dress? The face that appeared was one she knew at once. Benzeric. He glanced at Leon and said,
Apologies for my delay, cousin.
He stepped forward, his voice carrying a new gravitas.
Kat, allow me to introduce Leonidas Agamemnon Zakarian, Duke, Sovereign, and King of Estolia. Leon, this is Ekaterina Zomel, though she goes by Kat.
Kat marveled at the ease with which this man spoke her full name. Very few got the inflections correct. The weight of his words, King of Estolia, finally settled, and a flush crept up her neck.
Please, call me Leon. We Estolians love formal introductions, if only so that we can set all that formality aside once they're done.
Leon's smile softened the grandeur of his crown and cape. His expression carried a sincerity that felt more like welcome than ceremony. With Tiernan in her arms, Kat was unable to greet him properly, but Leon's relaxed demeanor suggested he took no offense. After a moment, he continued, his tone warm.
I would like to introduce you to my uncle, Lazarus Ezekiel Zakarian, former last resort, first consul, and our current keeper. Zeke, this is Kat.
Callie gently lifted Tiernan from her lap just as Zeke approached, extending both his hands to her. His grip was firm but gentle as he took her hands in his. His gaze was intense, probing, as if peering into the depths of her soul. For Kat, time stretched out before snapping back into place. A slow smile spread over his features.
It is a true pleasure to welcome you to Estolia. Please consider Estolia as if it is your home. You are welcome to remain for as long as you wish.
Ben said.
You have probably already met her, but just in case, this is Callista Tire Zakarian, Queen of Estolia, Kaylee of the King and mother of the heir apparent. Callie, this is Kat.
Callie grinned playfully at Benzeric.
I think she's wonderful. Not very many people can wake up in a strange room and entertain royalty in their nightgown.
She gestured to the toddler, playing at her husband's feet.
And the little guy is Tiernan. He'll be king someday. But for now, he's just a bundle of energy.
Zeke spoke.
Before I leave you to get dressed, I wanted to appraise you of the situation.
He turned and glanced at the others.
We will see you at breakfast in an hour or so,
said the king.
Benzeric will make sure you can find your way.
He stooped, lifting his son with a smile before glancing back at her.
If you will excuse us.
With Callie at his side and Tiernan in his arms, he left the room. With the royal family gone, an intimate hush fell over the room. Benzeric and Zeke settled into chairs near the bed, their expressions somber. Zeke's gaze rested on Kat, a mix of concern and authority in his eyes. Benzeric leaned forward, his voice low and gentle as he spoke.
Once we had you safely here, we were in touch with the Du Tournier estate. They requested that we fly the airplane back to Mallorca. Your friend Mandy was most distressed to learn about her boyfriend's demise.
He frowned at Zeke before continuing.
She spoke directly with me and told me that I should bring your clothing to you. She did not feel as if she could continue your friendship. She is clearly grieving. She wanted me to give you a message and tell you that you should find your own way home.
Kat should have realized that Mandy would respond in that way. She looked away from the perceptive eyes of the two men and swallowed on the reality of being stranded far from home, along with the dangers potentially present in Kentucky. She had fled those dangers, and the implications of her father's alleged nefarious dealings, when she accompanied Walter and Mandy to Mallorca, but she was on her own now. After she swallowed back her emotions and pulled herself together, she asked,
Do you have an American embassy?
We have a number of consulates on the island of Pequeño,
Zeke answered.
We do not rate an embassy being too small and too unimportant a nation. We do have Estolian embassies in other countries.
He studied her a moment, eyes perceptive.
What has you concerned?
She looked from him to Benzeric and back again.
Mandy and Walter flew me out here. I was planning to stay for 3 months and get a place to live and a job after the visit. I don't even have airfare to return home.
In the 24 hours since the news of du Tournier's death broke, you have become a bit of an overnight sensation,
Benzaric said, his tone even but carrying a quiet gravity meant to soften the blow.
Social media is reporting that you will be quite wealthy when you turn 21. Is that not correct?
Something in the way Benzaric spoke, steady but warmer than the question required, unsettled her. Kat told herself it was nothing more than polished courtesy, though a part of her wondered why it sounded almost personal.
It is true, but I will not be 21 until August. I think that is one reason Walter was comfortable with me hanging around them. He knew that I ultimately did not need his money.
She wondered if the papers were explaining the conditions she had to meet to inherit the money. Looking from one man to the other, she sensed the older man knew more than he was saying, but the younger man did not seem to know as much.
Kat, I should like for you to accept our hospitality until you turn 21,
Zeke said.
This suite has a sitting room on the next floor down, along with 2 other bedrooms. Benzaric and I will wait for you downstairs. You will find that all your clothing is in the drawers and closet. Feel free to take a shower and then join us when you are done. We can explain a few other things at that time.
Lights fade down. The world spins out of view. A gilded cage. A destiny brand new. Whispers toss through hallowed air. What's lost or gained within this snare? Two hearts entwined in love's accord, to be adored, the night's reward.
One unverified historical record states that on their search for the Holy Grail, the Knights of King Arthur's Round Table actually ventured to Estolia. Those writings speak of long, meaningful conversations between Kitharos and the one referred to merely as the spiritual leader. In trying to verify the information available, I came upon a passage in the personal diary of one of the temple artisans. I spoke at length with Litharos and found his stories nearly as fanciful as the tales of Zacharias. While I never did seek counsel from the keeper, nor receive confirmation of my suspicion, I feel as if the tales Litharos shared with me had to be due to the incredible touch of Deity upon their lives. Is it possible that those of the Northern Isles are blessed to live and thrive under their own deity's aegis? Kaylee. Essay on transcribing the words of a nation.
Ben looked at Zeke, wondering what he knew but was not sharing. They could hear the shower running upstairs. Finally he said,
Are you going to tell me what you know?
Zeke smiled gently at him.
Ekaterina Zamel. She is an interesting individual. Her mother was Ukrainian, but her father's family was from Islandar. There are no records of the name Zamel before his grandfather. My sources say that it was probably altered at Ellis Island when they immigrated to America.
The roots of her surname did not give you that keeper expression.
Ben's voice was droll. His grandfather had been the keeper, and he was familiar with the expression and tonality that would accompany a spiritual revelation.
Kat's father amassed a modest fortune ostensibly in the manufacture of mechanical parts for elevators. I've learned, however, that he was involved in some unsavory illegal enterprise in Kentucky before he and his wife were murdered during a botched burglary. When Kat marries, she will inherit the fortune. She did not expect to support herself, nor was she aware of the specific conditions set forth in her father's will.
So, what do I need to know?
Ben pushed. He had a feeling deep in his gut he would learn something unpalatable.
Your cat is very intelligent. One thing I learned was that she was considered so sharp that her parents shipped her to a boarding school so she would be less likely to figure out the fact that her father was involved in criminal enterprises. It may be that she still does not know the truth of her father's source of income. You yourself commented on her learning curve while you were speaking with her from the control tower.
Zeke paused before adding,
She needs to marry to access her fortune. She has a deadline by the time she is 21.
He now understood his uncle's caution. She faced pressure, through her father's will, to marry. But no reason to stay married once the vows were spoken. Persuading her might be simple. Keeping her would not. His true struggle lay in binding her life to his, permanently. If he failed, he would lose his soul, and no man could live without his soul.
What do you suggest?
Before Zeke could share his plan, they heard the upstairs door open and the sound of her descending the spiral staircase. At the bottom, she looked around at the decor. When she saw them in the sitting room, she swiftly crossed the room to sit in the chair across from them. Ben tried not to stare. She was so beautiful, like a tigress with her trendy orange and black striped hair falling to her jaw, making her a vivid jungle cat. The effect was astonishing on her compact frame, barely over 5 feet tall with her small pert breasts and slender hips. Like a sprite or a fairy, he mused. Tinkerbell. He could imagine her on an Estolian, galloping through the spirit grove. An uncomfortable tightening of his pants brought his attention back to the present. He focused on his cousin, willing his flesh to subside. Zeke, perhaps sensing Ben's need to compose himself, asked her,
Are you feeling recovered from your ordeal?
Thank you, I truly am. I know I made everything harder, first the rescue, then passing out like that.
Nonsense,
Zeke said.
It was an extraordinary event, and it was nice to see that my faith in Harmon and Ben was not misplaced.
He smiled again at her.
What I wish to discuss with you is the nature of the information circulating about you. Given my international connections, I took the liberty of gathering as much information as I could. As a wise friend of mine often says, information is power.
She looked at him warily, her attention switching to Ben before returning to Zeke.
And?
She prompted him.
My sources indicate you must marry before turning 21 or forfeit your inheritance. They also reveal you have taken no steps toward marriage since learning the will's terms. What remains unclear is whether you are intentionally relinquishing your inheritance, or if you are unsure how to meet the stipulations.
Her eyes were troubled. She frowned and glanced at Ben before looking again at Zeke. Then she looked down at her hands and began to explain.
Mandy and Walter were going to get married. Walter knew about my problem, and he was going to find me someone to marry so I could meet the terms of my father's will.
A paper marriage only?
Zeke asked, his tone measured.
That was what I thought they meant. Walter mentioned during the flight that it would be easier if I was willing to make it a real marriage. The longer we were flying, the more worried I got.
She paused, chewing on her lip and glancing at Ben and Zeke before looking down at her tiger-striped nails that matched her exotic hair color.
I think he was losing it long before I realized. He started telling me about the plans he had. The partner who was going to marry me and use my money for some lucrative deal. The way I was irrelevant to the plans both men had. Then his words grew chaotic just before he died.
You are only interested in a paper marriage?
Zeke pushed her. Ben felt as if the entire conversation was sandpaper abrading his nerves. She sat back and sighed.
I don't know what I want. Mandy isn't going to help me, and Walter is dead. I'm stuck here in Estolia unless I get the consulate to cover my journey home.
Kat's words slammed into Ben's reserve. For a moment he struggled to maintain his neutral expression before the warmth of peace washed over his body. His Bendelora had predicted this moment, his faith tested, then strengthened, standing firm in the face of crisis. Zeke would get it right.
Here in Estolia, we do not believe in temporary marriages. There is no divorce, no separation.
Zeke turned to look at Ben and added,
Benzarik is willing to marry you, but not if you expect it to be temporary.
She glanced at him, her face flooding with red heat. Embarrassed to be presented with him as her potential mate, he diagnosed.
I don't understand you,
she said.
It doesn't make sense.
In Estolia, men marry when they turn 30. Benzarik will be 30 tomorrow. He is willing to marry you.
Her eyes lifted to his and locked onto them, studying the aqua depths. The color came and went in her cheeks. After a minute, she pressed her lips together and lifted her chin. She looked stubborn, resolute, poised to reject him. Her eyes narrowed, and her tone was dry as she asked,
For my money?
Ben could not remain silent any longer.
I am actually quite wealthy in my own right.
All Estolians were.
We can, if you would like, create a prenuptial contract that outlines your sole possession of the wealth your father left you. It will be a binding contract in and out of Estolia.
The stubbornness melted away, and she suddenly looked like a young, insecure woman.
Why then?
Caution steadied him. She was not ready for the full truth, not yet. He needed to give her something she could believe.
Our faith is unique,
he said carefully, glancing toward his cousin for affirmation.
Estolian men must marry at 30 if a man makes no choice, the religious leader.
He inclined his head toward Zeke.
Selects one for him,
Zeke added, his tone even.
What he means, my dear, is that he has refused the Estolian woman I would have chosen for him. If he marries you, he will not be bound to the match I would otherwise arrange.
That made her frown.
All marriages are arranged?
No,
Ben answered.
I simply never met someone I wished to marry.
After a beat, he added softer.
Until now.
Then he turned the full force of his smile on her.
But why?
She asked them. Gesturing to herself, she said,
I am nothing much to look at.
Perhaps it is the knight-errant in me,
he said with a hint of whimsy.
After helping to save your life from the control tower, I found myself more interested in you than in the woman I was expected to marry.
But won't she be devastated?
He shook his head.
She will make a great alliance, I am sure. Since you must marry, Cat, will you consider marrying me?
She looked from him to Zeke and back again.
Tomorrow?
Tonight,
Zeke answered, his tone firm.
Our marriage customs are quite different from those of other nations. You would have the first ceremony tonight in the temple, and then after a week of seclusion, the final ceremony in the cathedral.
Two hearts entwined in love's accord, to be adored. The night's reward.
This bond transcends our transient existence, a unity blessed by celestial persistence. Cat be my haven, my sanctuary, my home. Let our body, self, and soul entangle together to roll.
As a physicist seeks to quantify the building blocks of molecules and atoms to understand the world around them, so too does the Keeper seek to understand the particles of identity, body, self, and soul, to better our understanding of deity and destiny. Xavier Archimedes Zakarian, Capitulo 86.
Kat felt strangely tempted. There was something about Benzarik Zakarian. She remembered her first impression of him, visually, and how moved she was by his exceptional good looks. The one thing that hurt the most in Walter's words before he died was his admission that she was at most pretty, and how hard it would be to get any man to marry her despite her money. Now this beautiful man was asking her to marry him? Tonight.
If, after the week of seclusion is over, you cannot stand the thought of being married to Benzeric, you will be given the chance to reject the alliance.
Zeke told her.
This gives him a full week to encourage you to remain married to him.
This is crazy,
she said. Zeke got to his feet.
I will leave the two of you to talk about this.
He turned to Ben and said,
I will expect you down in the breakfast room within the half hour.
In moments she was alone with Ben, and warmth crept up her neck before she could stop it. This man was asking her to marry him, and judging by his expression, he was not proposing anything platonic.
Zeke is the most powerful man in the nation. He can be a bit autocratic at times. He knew I was interested in you the moment I told him about meeting you. He told me then that I should pursue you.
How could you pursue me if you have to be married by tonight?
I think he expected me to simply seduce you if possible. But then...
He broke off and flushed, the colour painfully bright against his fair skin.
Then?
She prompted. His colour deepened until his face nearly glowed.
I understood that you had to agree. I could not simply seduce you.
She wasn't sure about that.
Ben, I'm nothing special at all.
For a moment she hesitated, wondering if she should tell him to marry the other girl instead.
I assume you'll have the chance to reject me at the end of the week?
Suddenly the lingering colour drained from his face, leaving him almost ghostly.
Technically, a man can reject the woman. In practice, it never happens. The choice is always hers.
He offered a crooked smile.
I certainly would not reject you.
She thought about her father's former business associates. They wanted the money her parents left her. She had been desperate to escape them when Mandy invited her to Mallorca. If she returned to Kentucky, they would pounce. Married, willingly or not, she would be trapped within weeks. Maybe marrying this man would keep her safely out of their reach. The thought rose before she could stop it.
What do you do, Ben?
He smiled at her, his colour returning to normal as he explained,
I am one of the pilots for the Zakarian National Airline. If I marry, I will have a year-long sabbatical to take a course of study in the temple. After that year, I will take up my duties as a pilot once again.
If you are a pilot, why were you in the control tower yesterday?
He brushed back the hair on one side of his head, showing off 5 or 6 stitches over his left temple.
I was thrown from my horse and got a pretty severe concussion. The doctor grounded me until the stitches come out, to be safe.
You have a horse?
Suddenly he was more interesting to her. She had always wanted to learn how to ride a horse and maybe even get one someday. He grinned broadly.
Oh yes, Cat, I have a horse. One of the gifts I would give you for marrying me would be an Estolian. My parents breed them.
Estolian?
She frowned. She had heard of those.
Wasn't Scimitar de España an Estolian?
She remembered the horse that won the gold medal for Spain in dressage at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. The breed had sparked endless conversations for its rarity and its fierce loyalty to a single owner. Even though she could now afford one, it had always seemed a reckless extravagance. The documentary she watched listed an average Estolian at nearly $100,000.
They come from Estolia.
And Estolian?
She repeated slowly, saying the name as 2 words.
Oh.
Marry me, Cat,
he urged. She closed her eyes, blanking out the handsome features of the man asking her to marry him. She wanted to say yes, wanted to grab hold of the opportunity the instant she could. What choice did she have?
What happens if we marry, and I choose to reject you in a week?
Somehow that seemed the most important question to ask.
Do you then marry the other girl after all?
When he did not respond right away, she opened her eyes. His expression had shifted. The skin of his forehead tightened, his jaw clenched, his eyes shadowed and unreadable. A shiver of unease traced its way down her spine.
Estolia can be considered a theocracy. While the king is the nominal leader, the statesman who sits comfortably at the head of Estolia and accepts what little scrutiny comes our way, in truth, most decisions are made by a team of 4 powerful men, with the keeper making the most critical decisions. At the end of our week of seclusion, he will ask us if we have consummated our union, and he will ask if you, cat, have taken my soul into your keeping. In Estolia, every person has 3 elements that make the whole human: the physical body that will, in time, fail, the self which contains everything that you are, your personality and memories, your intellect and character. This element is eternal, and like the physical body, it matures, ages, gains from your lifetime experiences. The 3rd element of a person is their soul, that which breathes life into the self and body.
She watched him while he spoke, fascinated by the subtle shifts in his expression, by the sincerity threading through this most peculiar discussion.
What does this have to do with my question?
I feel like it is necessary for you to understand some of my most deeply held beliefs, so that you will appreciate what I am going to tell you.
He smiled at her, and something in that gesture caught her off guard. This man, this impossibly handsome man, was planning to marry her. If she was willing, she was tempted. He continued his narrative.
To an Estolian, the soul is integral to marriage. In your country and much of the modern world, there are those who consider the differences between a man and a woman mere societal impositions, that gender identity should be defined from within, shaped by each person's sense of individuality rather than by some old-fashioned paradigm.
He paused, the faintest crease forming between his brows. Kat wondered what thought had given him pause.
While we respect these viewpoints, they are not applicable to our nation or to those who live our faith. We believe that the souls of men and women are uniquely different, that this is not a societal construct, but rather, for those who wish to adhere to our faith, an immutable characteristic that cannot be altered.
He looked away, squinting as if weighing some unspoken flaw in his own words. A small self-conscious shrug followed.
It is not perhaps the most politically correct viewpoint.
Are you stalling?
She asked. Then, because she sensed he was genuinely curious, she continued,
I am a live and let live person. I am glad when people feel validated in their own understanding of themselves and their identities. But I have never felt drawn to change my pronouns or any part of who I am. I want a traditional marriage.
Heat rose in her face as she realized what she had just confessed to a man who had already proposed to her. He grinned in response to her comment. Continuing what he was saying,
we believe that the bodies of men and women are physiologically different, and so are their souls. Women, in general, have souls that are firmly attached to the self. A man's soul is not nearly as well anchored, and as he nears the age of 30, his self no longer keeps his soul comfortably. At this age, the link between the two becomes fragile, and his soul yearns for a more perfect home. Like a caterpillar leaves much of its substance behind when it becomes a butterfly, so too a man's soul leaves his self once it encounters the one perfect, extraordinary woman who is perfectly suited to him, and when she takes it into her keeping, their 2 souls are transformed, fused, connected by an eternal bond that transcends death. Tonight, Cat, I wish to place my soul within your keeping.
She wasn't sure if she should believe him. It sounded strange, too strange, to come from a man as eloquent, intelligent, and sane as Ben.
You haven't answered my question,
she pointed out. He leaned forward, his expression solemn.
Once I give my soul into your keeping, Cat, only you can decide whether to keep me in your life or reject me. The exchange is permanent. A man cannot live without his soul. If you turn me away, I will not see my 31st birthday.
She felt his words reverberate in her chest as if shouted, though he spoke barely above a whisper. The quiet only made their meaning strike harder.
You're saying you'll be killed?
No. If you reject me, you deny me my soul. I cannot survive without it.
He took a deep breath.
Marry me, Cat. Keep my soul safe. Bear our children. Build a home here in Estolia with me.
But you don't love me. I don't love you. Why should I say yes? Why would you risk your life on me?
She felt desperate, unwilling to be the cause of this beautiful man's end.
I told my uncle that if you will not marry me, then I will not marry at all. I will live my life in celibacy, and he has accepted that decision. I believe, Cat, that Deity brought you to Estolia, that we are meant to be. But I would rather have 1 week of heaven on earth, here, with you, than a lifetime alone and lonely, without any comfort, and without you.
She stood abruptly, her pulse quickening. The room felt smaller, charged. She looked at him, not with disbelief, but with a need she could not name.
How does a woman take a man's soul into her keeping?
He rose as well, stepping closer until she could feel the steadiness of his breath. His gaze caught hers.
Cat,
he said softly, his voice pleading.
It is about purity. When a woman yields herself to a man for the first time, if he is 30 years old, his soul is drawn to that purity. She will take his soul into her keeping, but she cannot return it. I believe my soul has already recognized its home within you. And because of that, my choice is simple. I will give my soul into your keeping, or I will live my life alone.
The only day you can do this is your 30th birthday?
He shook his head slightly.
As long as a man is 30, he can find the woman who will keep his soul.
What's the rush, then?
She asked, the question sharper than she intended. He closed the distance between them. He touched the side of her face, fingertips brushing against her ear, thumb softly stroking the skin of her cheek. Liquid fire coursed through her system, starting where he touched her and settling deep in her hips.
The greatest blessings come to any Estolian couple who are able to consummate their relationship upon his birthday.
His words were nibbling away at her resistance, sinking in slowly. She was distracted by the feel of his hand on her face, by the surge of heat flowing through her body and settling within her system. His left hand curled around her hip and pressed against her lower spine, drawing her closer. She was certain he was going to kiss her. His lips stopped short, hovering a few millimeters over hers.
May I kiss you, Cat?
He whispered.
Please?
She whispered back. Gently his lips found hers. When he pulled away slightly, she could feel the hardness of his thighs against hers and his heart racing.
Another reason to rush?
His voice was a little shaky.
Is that once a man meets the woman who can keep his soul, he will be anxious to hasten that moment.
I'm not sure,
she began. They were interrupted by a tap on the door. Ben smiled at her and then stepped away.
Come in,
he said, his voice deeper than she remembered.
Cat, be my haven, my sanctuary, my home. Let our body, self, and soul entangle together to roam. I offer my soul, my most hallowed part.
Through palaces, tricks, romance and rescues, religion and royalty, family comes first. Ezekiel's daughters, a testament of life.
Life is like a puzzle, where each piece is part of a great mosaic that depicts the blessed of Estolia. The ramifications of each piece of the puzzle, however, often are not ironed out until 1 or 2 more capitulos have passed behind. Xavier Archimedes Zakarian, Capitulo 86.
The face that peered around the door was slender and long, framed by dark eyes and hair. The young woman who stepped into the room was tall, almost as tall as Benzeric, and painfully slender. Her thick hair rioted in curls. Cat was sure that with a few changes to her hairstyle and an extra 20 pounds, she could be quite pretty.
Dad said I should remind you that your time is up.
She said, looking a bit uncertain. as if not sure whether to leave or stay.
Have you met Kat?
Ben asked. The young woman shook her head.
Well then, I should like to make the introductions.
He smiled at Kat.
Ekaterina Zomel, may I present my cousin Emerald Amethyst Zakarian. Emerald, this is Kat.
Emerald amethyst, a beautiful soul.
Emerald stepped forward and embraced Kat, an unexpectedly earnest gesture that made Kat feel smaller still, her cheek brushing against the taller woman's shoulder. When Emerald stepped back, she offered a smile meant for both of them, warm, if a bit uncertain, and Kat saw in it the promise of future beauty, the kind that would grow into its own stunning potential over time.
What do you say, Kat?
Ben asked, his voice quiet but insistent, the question lingering like a breath between them. Looking at the slender young woman, angular and awkward, Kat felt a surge of courage rising in her, the courage to marry Benzerik Zakarian. She followed that inner leap with the merest nod of her head, just enough to make his eyes widen and satisfaction transform his features.
I will show you down to the breakfast room,
he said. While Kat followed Ben and Emerald down from the North Tower suite, she marveled at the architecture, the extraordinary antiques, and the beautiful ambience of the palace. After a lengthy hike through myriad hallways and several staircases, they arrived at the breakfast room. It would be nearly impossible to find her way back to her room without help. Zeke was in the breakfast room, along with the king and queen. Little Tiernan was not in evidence. A young girl with carrot-colored curls and large green eyes, perhaps 10 or 11 years old, was in the breakfast room.
This is my youngest child, Miracle. Miracle, this is Ekaterina Zomel,
Zeke said, adding after a glance at Ben,
she is going to marry your cousin Benzerik.
Miracle jumped to her feet, and without the slightest inhibition, she lurched forward and embraced Kat.
I am so glad,
she said. After they sat down, Zeke turned his attention to the young girl, asking her,
What makes you so glad, Miracle?
A wide smile spread across her face, and she glanced from Kat to Ben and back again.
Deity truly loves us.
That non sequitur elicited no comment.
They will not.
Miracle began impulsively, her voice louder than necessary in the breakfast room. After a slight quelling motion by her father, she lowered her voice and said,
They will never find you here, you know.
Who will not?
Ben asked. Miracle looked from Ben to her and back again before answering,
The men in Kentucky.
Kat stared at the young girl, wondering how she could possibly know about the men in Kentucky she was hiding from, that she did not wish to tangle with. She glanced at Zeke. He seemed quite old to have such a young daughter.
Miracle was a late addition to our family,
he explained, somehow sensing what she was thinking. He smiled down at his pixie-like daughter.
She is one of the most spiritual individuals in Estolia. She is the child most like me.
But I am a girl,
she said into the silence.
So I cannot be the keeper.
Kat looked at the precocious girl and said softly,
I'm sorry, Miracle.
That brought an unladylike guffaw from the young girl.
Like it matters to me. Being keeper is a lot of work. Instead, I am going to marry a prince.
Kat looked at Zeke, wondering how he was taking that proclamation. He was staring at his daughter.
A prince?
He queried. She nodded.
Deity told me last week. A dear. I dreamed it was true.
Kat looked at Ben, who shrugged, and then at Zeke, who was looking at his daughter with a strange expression that encompassed a mixture of exasperation and pride. The young girl looked from her father to Kat and said,
You cannot do it.
Her emotions were obviously swinging wildly. Her earlier proud statement about who she would marry had dissolved into obvious distress.
Do what?
Zeke asked.
Marry Ben on a trial basis.
She looked at her father.
She has to promise that it is forever.
She was suddenly crying.
You cannot be mean to Ben, please.
She pled. Kat was at a loss as to how she should respond. Zeke responded for her, looking at his daughter. He said,
Do you really think I would allow harm to come to Ben?
Of course not, Dad. But Ben needs to know.
Deity communicates to more than you, young lady,
Zeke said with a note of warning in his voice. She looked strangely cowed. In moments she was grinning at Kat and said pertly,
I am glad you are going to marry Ben. He is one of my favorite people.
Her mercurial mood swing still in evidence. Zeke glanced at Kat and said,
I beg forgiveness for speaking in Estolian.
He turned and directed a long-winded spate of foreign dialogue at his daughter. The two spoke for several minutes before the young girl leaped to her feet and rounded the table to where Kat was sitting. That was when Kat noticed that the young girl had issues with coordination. She walked in a strange way, as if her legs were not quite matched with each other.
May I hold your hands for a moment?
She asked with charm. Kat extended both hands to the young girl and waited to see what would happen. Miracle took them and then closed her eyes, as if communing with unseen spirits. When her eyes opened, she seemed subdued. After a couple of moments passed, she looked to her father.
I see now, Papa, what you meant to tell me.
Turning to look at Kat, she said to her,
Ben is everything you want, everything you need. Promise to stay with him unless you discover you hate him.
Of course,
Kat said, not even realizing what she was promising, until after the young girl beamed a smile and then lurched clumsily out of the breakfast room. Kat turned from her appraisal of the door that Miracle departed through to look at the two men, and from them to the king and queen who had watched the entire drama silently.
There goes one extraordinary person,
She whispered, touched by the strange mixture of wisdom beyond the girl's age, naivete and overpowering effervescence. Zeke nodded, a small smile playing about his mouth.
My daughter Miracle was a late addition. My wife had a difficult pregnancy, and it seemed likely she would lose the baby. The doctors said that it would be a miracle if she carried the babe to term. I realized that my wife and I would be blessed with a true miracle. Deity has something special in store for her.
So, you have decided to marry Ben?
Callie joined the conversation to ask. Kat nodded again, feeling as if momentum was taking hold of her.
I promised young Miracle I would stay with him unless I somehow ended up hating him.
She turned to look at Ben's gorgeous aqua eyes and said,
Which seems highly unlikely.
His expression was warm as he looked at her.
Excellent,
Leon said.
As there is no call for the royal seclusion suite, I shall ask that it be readied.
I already have, actually,
Zeke said. He grinned and added,
The luxury available in the seclusion suite is one of our secret weapons in getting those from outside to never want to leave.
Romance and rescues, religion and royalty, family comes first. Clumsy yet cute, she thrives as she strives to overcome obstacles. She's spiritually keen. A man stands, his spirit deep, waiting for the one who'll keep his soul. Destiny unfolding as he leaps.
Shasta's gift, love revealed.
The 12 postulates of inner peace were compiled so that I might, during affairs of state and other solemn occasions, keep my mind on the important tasks in front of me and not on the sweet, seductive smile of my Kaylee, Kaydaro.
Ben sometimes wished he did not possess the dubious blessing of having been, in an alternate reality, the heir apparent to the throne of Estolia. His grandfather was the only son of the 86th king of Estolia, but he died the day Ben's father was born. Because of this, and the what-if of a history that could have made him king, Ben had grown used to the scrutiny of others. His life weighed a little more than the average Estolian's. He would be given the blessing and the responsibilities that came with spending the first 7 days with Kat in the royal seclusion suite. Steam curled around him as he stood beneath the water, thinking of his father. The older man had lived with a different kind of ambiguity, the quiet knowledge that he might have been considered the rightful heir to the throne. But the keeper had declared the firstborn son of King Leo to be the next heir apparent. His father had never expressed any unhappiness at being left to live an ordinary life, though he often rubbed elbows with the royalty of Estolia. Only after he took over the running of the royal stables did he finally move out of the palace. For Ben, That distance had made simplicity possible. Yet now he found himself being drawn once more into palace intrigues. He rubbed the towel briskly over his hair, the heat of the shower still rising from his skin. Then, without thinking, he moved through the familiar rhythm of shaving. As the razor traced its deliberate path, his thoughts settled on the simple future he had once planned for himself. He would fly his jet to Mallorca, or perhaps Barcelona, or London, to find his Kaylee, marry her on his birthday, and fit his life neatly into the pattern expected of Estolian families, watching his children grow up in the one place that, compared to the rest of the world, was a paradise of simplicity. He would grow old with his wife, and when their first grandchild married, they would yield up their hold on this life and continue their adventures together in tourism. Except it all seemed to change the day he was bucked off Shasta, his horse. He was having a long weekend, and afterwards he was going to visit the Amador family. The triplets had turned 18 3 months earlier and received their Bendelora from Zeke, declaring that all three would marry within the same month. In the 3 months since, their father had grown increasingly anxious for one of them to settle on a mate, certain that once one did, the other two would follow.
Shasta girl,
he told the dapple-grey mare.
I think I am going to see if Kelsey Amador can keep my soul. You will.
But he never got the chance to finish his sentiment, because Shasta dropped her head and threw her butt in the air, and he was so surprised he simply flew out of the saddle. Unfortunately, a mayberry tree stopped his progress through the air. He was leaning against the trunk, trying to count the stars whirling around his head, when his sister Angel came upon him sitting against the tree. Being a doctor, she wasted no time. In minutes, she was supporting him, leading him over to where her one-horse cart was parked. It was a short journey back to his home, where she helped him inside with her characteristic brisk efficiency.
You will need several stitches,
she said after examining his temple. While she stitched up the cut, he called and delayed the meeting with Kelsey Amador, planning to meet her in a week.
Did you lose consciousness?
She asked. Reluctantly, he told her he did.
It was only a few moments,
he argued.
How do you know?
She asked him. He had to admit that he did not know how long he was knocked out.
You're grounded until the stitches come out, and after if I feel it's necessary,
Angel stated.
But,
he started to argue. They were already short of pilots. It would be a hardship for the airline to do without him.
No buts, Ben. You are grounded.
5 days later, he was on his way to see Kelsey Amador, and Shasta was being difficult once again. He finally had her saddled and settled, ready to depart from his tidy bungalow, when a call came through directing him to the nearby Amador airport instead. The moment he turned her away from the Amador house and toward the control tower, she went from fractious to amiable, settling easily into a canter as he focused his attention on the airfield. During the half-mile ride, he noticed a red Beechcraft circling between the twin mountains. It was unfamiliar, not from Estolia. He knew every helicopter and airplane on the island, and this was not one of them. At the time, he had no idea he was already following his destiny, with a little help from Shasta. He finished shaving and went over to the clothing he had draped on his bed. With an economy of movement, he donned the dark slacks and green shirt, deciding against the purple tie. He brushed his hair, and after a moment, he turned off the light. Angel and Stuart were going to pick him up in their carriage, bring him around Montestoliana to the temple. Zeke had declared that it was best for the couple to forego any sort of family dinner. They would meet in the seclusion suite, have dinner there, and proceed apace. Before leaving the house, he paused to offer a prayer to Deity. A quiet sense of inadequacy stirred as he thought of the extraordinary woman meeting him in the temple. He bowed his head.
Deity, please guide me. Help me with Ekaterina Zamel. Help her to realize that I am the correct man for her. Teach her how to be gentle with my soul. Help me to be everything she needs in a man, everything my family believes me to be.
He couldn't think what else to say. For all his talk of faith, he was still just a man hoping to be enough. After a moment he realized he was stalling. It was time for him to face the woman who had declared her worthiness to keep his soul. The sun was already setting when he opened the door. Angel and Stuart waited for him, their 4 horses snorting in the traces. Ben walked up to the carriage and smiled at his sister. Angel was one of the best sisters a man could hope for. He had the strange distinction of being one of the few people in Estolia with older sisters, but no older brothers. Of his 4 sisters, only Melody was younger than him, along with his 2 younger brothers.
How are you doing, brother?
Angel asked him. He smiled at his sister and at her husband, then glanced at the rounded swell of her pregnancy.
I'm fine. How are you?
He asked. Her graceful hand came to rest on her abdomen.
I'm great,
She said, her voice warm.
and I still have 6 more weeks.
Where are the boys?
With Misty.
She said, smiling. Misty's dedication to children was well known in the family.
I did not think you were planning on having any more children,
he said to her.
Deity knew I wanted more than 2 boys.
She said.
Stuart always felt cheated not to have some daughters. We're taking care of balancing everything out.
She exchanged a knowing look with her husband, then grinned.
I'm having twins.
Ben felt unsettled as his glance fell to Angel's midsection. He would be a father in 9 months if he continued with the set of events that began with Shasta bucking him off. Angel's pregnancy faded from his mind, replaced by the sudden, vivid awareness of Kat's aura. He would place his soul in her keeping. There was no other possibility. Deity had woven the lure of the aura to be irresistible.
I haven't met Kat,
Stuart said.
What can you tell me about her?
He wasn't sure what he was supposed to say.
She is from Kentucky. She has a charming accent. She looks every bit the jungle cat, with her hair dyed in tiger stripes.
And
Angel prompted.
And she is the most beautiful woman I have ever met,
he said.
Uncle Zeke is having you use the Royal Seclusion Suite?
Angel asked.
Yes,
Ben said.
It is partly due to it being available, but I am guessing that part of it has to do with the fact that I am my father's oldest son.
And he would have been king if his father didn't abdicate.
Angel finished drolly.
I am glad I am not king,
Ben said.
Leon is better at it than I ever would have been.
Angel laughed at that. When she finally sobered, she smiled ruefully.
But it is true, you just aren't that regal, Ben. Especially not with those eyes.
He flushed. He was the only one with the peculiar aqua-colored eyes. None of his brothers shared them. Amber, grey, and silver were the common tones among the Zakarian lines. The carriage halted before the well-lit entrance to the temple. He inclined his head softly to the 2 statues of massive felines. During his acolyte year, he had made it a point to greet them every day, convinced that Deity favored the stone bodies for naps, and that because of his daily courtesy, Deity had guided him and ensured his success in study. He stepped down from the carriage, surprised that Angel and Stuart were not following.
We were told this wasn't the time for family,
Angel explained. Then, quoting the familiar blessing, she said,
May you always walk in the light inside of Deity.
The next thing he knew, the 4 horses were leaving at a brisk clip. He drew a deliberate breath and faced the temple. 2 acolytes materialized, waiting for him to approach so they could open the doors. Another breath steadied him as he climbed the 10 steps to the entrance. His skin prickled at the thought that the next time he left the temple, he would know what it would be like to leave his soul in some other person's keeping. No, he corrected himself. Not just some other person. He would be placing his soul within Kat's keeping. Through that connection, they would have a greater spiritual and physical link than anyone in the non-Estolian world. He mounted the steps resolutely. Faith steadied him. If Deity revealed Kat's aura, she would not reject him, and if she did, that too would be Deity's plan. All he could do was heed the promptings of the Spirit, do what was right, and let the future resolve itself in its own time. He grinned at the acolytes opening the door for him. Memory stirred, those days serving in the temple, privy in a roundabout way to the romances unfolding in the seclusion chambers. As a budding pilot, he had spent 1 day a week at the airport, but the rest of his acolyte service was seclusion suite duty, delivering trays of food and delicacies, holding doors, cleaning, cooking, and otherwise spending more time around couples celebrating their seclusion than any normal young man should. Combined with the erotic reading assignments in the capitulos, he had spent a fair portion of his temple year uncomfortably trying to memorize the postulates of inner peace. He appreciated the acolytes now. He and Kat would be pampered in the quiet luxury of seclusion, the rest of the world held at a respectful distance. Once inside the foyer, he turned toward his cousin's office, but an acolyte stepped into his path.
The keeper believes that you should go directly to the seclusion suite.
Ben shrugged. He had expected a last-minute conversation with his cousin, but it wasn't strictly necessary. His heartbeat quickened at the thought of Ekaterina Zomel. She fired his imagination, and he hoped he could return the favor. The acolytes escorted him through the ceremony room and into the second foyer.
You are to wait here for your bride,
the nearest acolyte murmured. In moments, the only individuals left were the attendants standing beside the doors of the seclusion suite. As the minutes ticked over, he decided to look at one of the paintings on the wall, a much younger Zeke in his religious garb, holding the dagger of office. Studying the painting, he wondered briefly how it would have felt to be the heir apparent, but it took only a moment to realize that he had no desire for the burden of greater responsibility. An airplane in the air was enough, or his own life and that of his Kaylee. The crown and all its obligations were far too much.
They love beyond what I decreed. No vow of mine can steal their flame. No keeper bound can bear such claim. Heaven hums beneath the light. Taste the sweetness burns, souls commute. Every kiss sparks of right, bound by Mayberry fruit.
When in ignorance of the significance of the Mayberry fruit and all its symbolism, a woman is given one taste of its flavor, yet decides to give her groom an equal taste of the fruit, that union has a special blessing from Deity, assuring the couple will know happiness every day of their lives. Caetheros, Capitulo 42.
A subtle motion in his peripheral vision drew Ben's gaze. An acolyte was signaling, eyes shifting towards the doors separating the ceremony room from the second foyer. He turned just in time to witness a vision of loveliness grace the entrance. Kat's tiger-striped hair perfectly complemented her dress, unmistakably the work of the royal clothier. The light cream base, adorned with dark purple tiger stripes and peacock-hued glitter, hugged her petite form in a sheath silhouette, stirring an uncomfortable tightening in his loins. He advanced swiftly, coming to a graceful halt before her. Bending at the waist, he took her hand, raising it to meet his lips.
"You look most lovely this evening, Ekaterina,"
he declared, his voice a caress. She smiled at him, her eyes alight with warmth.
You look quite attractive yourself, Ben-Zyrek,
she replied softly. He turned slightly, his gaze inviting.
"Will you join me for a meal?"
he asked, his voice low and intimate. She nodded, looking bemused. He extended one of his arms to her, and once she took it, he turned and moved over towards the two acolytes. They pulled the doors open, and he felt a surge of nostalgia for the room he had spent so much time keeping in top shape for a full year of his life. The table was set for a romantic dinner, with a crisp salad at each of the place settings and wine chilling in a bucket of ice. He led her to her chair and pulled it out for her. Once he had her settled into her seat, he went around to his own, smiling at her.
I didn't expect...
She broke off, a light blush on her cheeks.
"Did not expect a lovely meal?"
he said. He knew that she likely did not expect him to do anything other than pounce on her. He wanted her to be an active part of their coming together. She could reject him if he did not seek the pathway of permanence. He poured her a glass of wine, and then one for himself. Raising his glass, he said,
"I would like to offer a toast, Kat, to the two of us. May we find happiness together."
She hesitated a moment, and then touched her glass to his before sipping the wine. Her eyes widened at the flavor. The Danieli vintage was one of the great secrets from the northern Amador hillside vineyards. He sipped the wine also, remembering to moderate his intake.
It is a potent wine, Cat, so be cautious.
It might be easier to get her into bed willingly if she was inebriated, but he wanted her to be as aware of their coming together as he intended to be. They finished their salad, and shortly afterwards, a light tap on the door heralded the arrival of the next course of their meal. Cat watched the two young men who came in curiously. The first one picked up their used salad plates, and the second one set before them their next course. In moments, the two men had departed again.
Who are those men?
She asked after they finished the second course.
They look like monks more than waiters.
He smiled at that.
Here in Estolia, every young man spends a year learning about the religion and the history of Estolia. They are called acolytes, and each acolyte is also assigned one or more service jobs during the year spent learning. Those two have been assigned to make sure that this seclusion suite is never short of the necessary supplies. They will make sure we have clean linens, food, everything we might need.
She looked behind where she was sitting. She saw the tapestry pulled back, with the large bed behind it partially visible. She turned back with another delightful blush on her face. Another tap on the door heralded the two acolytes returning to remove the used dishes and bring the main course. It was silent again as they ate the food presented to them. He topped off her glass and his own, feeling the pleasant sensation of warmth permeating his system. There was something extraordinary about the heat of the Danieli vintage threading through his veins, blending with the quiet shimmer of Cat's aura and the pulse that Deity set alight beneath his skin. The universe resolved itself into a single tone, steady, luminous, telling him he was precisely where he should be. Just after the acolytes brought their dessert, sectioned Mayberry fruit, Cat blurted out,
Are you sure, Ben?
He looked at her and felt the shock of absolute certainty, wishing he could let her feel it too, so she would know beyond question how right it was.
I have never done anything in my life with such clarity of heart. I am certain that you are right for me. I can only pray that I am right for you.
Her eyes lowered to the sectioned Mayberry fruit, and she lifted one segment between her fingers. He watched as she placed it on her tongue, saw her eyes widen as the flavor surged through her, rich, bright, alive.
Wow,
she breathed. He reached for a segment and followed her example. The flavor was even more exquisite than he'd imagined. Knowing the acolytes would not return, he picked up the last two segments and rose to his feet. As she stood, he approached and held a piece to her lips. She took it, her eyes fluttering as she savored it. She looked down at the last segment in his hand and reached for it. He felt a triumph out of proportion to anything else he had ever heard of when, instead of consuming the exquisite fruit, she held it out to him, sharing equally with him. He looked at her. It was time to close the distance, time to make the bid for his life. He turned and picked up his glass of wine, and hers, handing hers to her.
To the two of us,
he said. They both drank the last of the Danieli vintage, the wine on top of the fruit setting their tongues to tingling. He set his empty glass on the table and took hers and set it next to his. Then he stepped towards her, pulling her slowly into his arms.
Ekaterina Zomel,
he said, his hand cupping her face.
Will you be mine?
He knew his body was responding to the fruit and to the wine, and especially to the vibrant body pressed up against his own. There was no way he could avoid his response to her. She moved closer to him, her eyes screaming acquiescence, even as the blush on her face whispered that this was new territory for her. He bent towards her, kissing her gently. He could taste the fruit and the wine on her lips, and knew she would be tasting the same. In moments, he was deepening the kiss, wanting to taste of her essence mixed with the potent aphrodisiac of fruit and wine mixed together. Forever, it seemed, they kissed and caressed one another. It was only the feel of her hands on his naked chest that brought him up short, realizing that she had half undressed him. Breathing heavily, he backed off slightly and then grabbed her hand so he could lead her to the bedroom portion of the seclusion suite. Once beyond the tapestry, he untied it so that it fell to enclose the bedroom area. The other tapestry was already covering the floor-to-ceiling windows. They were in an enclosed space with but one purpose. She looked at him for a minute before grabbing the hem of her sheath dress and pulling it upward, and in moments she had removed it. He stared in amazement at her compact body, her small but firm breasts, her glorious abdomen, and beautiful aura. His eyes met hers as he shrugged out of the shirt she had already unbuttoned. His hands then went to the belt, and swiftly he was pushing his pants down off his legs. It took only a moment for him to remove his socks and shoes, and when he straightened up, he was standing naked in front of the woman he hoped would cherish his soul. Her color was high again. She was staring at his erection. She looked into his eyes, and he saw how insecure she was. She was a delightful, beautiful woman. But she was a virgin, faced with the very real evidence of his arousal, and the fact that she was alone with a man who intended to possess her. He turned away from her and went to the bed, pulling down the covers. When he turned back, he saw that she had removed her last item of clothing and now stood gloriously naked. He watched as she approached where he stood, her body coming into full contact with his. She looked up at him, and he dipped his head down to kiss her again, savoring the lingering taste of Mayberry fruit on her tongue. The magic of the fruit and of the way that they were so right for one another simply took over, and it was not long before he was poised over her, ready to claim her. He held back, wanting to see acceptance before he could make her his and give his soul permanently into her keeping. She opened her eyes, and then with an almost feline growl of conquest, she pulled him down onto her. He groaned at the sensation of her body taking him in, at the feel of her soul doing the same with his, and he knew that there was literally nothing on earth that could possibly compare to this moment in his life, in their life. Then all thoughts ceased entirely, and the two of them focused on sensation, feeling, giving and receiving, and the deepest, most profound connection any human on the planet could ever feel with another. She was making little purring grunts of pleasure when he felt the overwhelming heat of his orgasm wash through his system. He came to a halt, buried deeply within her, feeling the sensation spreading through his entire body, knowing with a sense of great beauty that any child created by this union would be one of the most special people on the planet. He remained still over her, for what seemed like a long time. The physiological reality of his body shrinking had him pulling away from her. She muttered a faint complaint at the loss of that connection, and he felt a similar loss. He pulled her up tight next to his body, sighing heavily at the memory of their intimacy racing through his system.
Ekaterina Zomel, you keep my soul. I hope that in 7 days you will consent to marry me and remain with me for the entirety of our lives.
She did not answer verbally, but he had a sense that she was as much his as he was hers.
Flame and breath reunite, love sealed by Mayberry But she had a promise to keep, to miracle with Ben remain. No barrier but hate to steal, a promise to miracle.
During the conference, I was deeply moved listening to the representatives of 12 faiths share how their traditions understand love, intimacy, and marriage. Each spoke with a conviction that seemed to draw breath from the same timeless source, though their paths differed in form and purpose. Hathi and Zalundi, Catholic and Latter-day Saints, Estolian, Muslim, and others, each voice distinct, yet all joined in reverence. I came away humbled, recognizing that every faith, no matter how remote or restrained, believes just as fervently in its deity's benevolence and guidance as I do in the sacred bond I've been blessed to know. Gideon Zakarian, designates journal.
The next morning, after sleeping in and another session of lovemaking, they both donned simple robes in the royal colors. Breakfast was served by the same two acolytes, who then discreetly vanished, leaving them alone in the seclusion suite. Kat looked around, curious about the space where she was spending the most profound moments of her life. A thick, curved wall of glass stretched from the bathroom to the dining area, separating the suite from an enchanting garden. Outside, a sparkling brook burbled down a series of miniature falls, then spread out into a sprawling, meandering pond before its waters crept through a slender crevice between two jutting rock walls. In the garden were flowering trees, herbs, and a single stone bench. The space seemed to breathe with the quiet rhythm of romantic poetry married to peace. The meandering pond held foot-long koi, their scales flashing like scattered coins beneath the water's surface, and even a couple of small turtles basking on the rocks. A few chattering squirrels darted among the branches, as if claiming the garden as their own sanctuary. Inside the seclusion suite, the furnishings were simple. A half-moon-shaped table that looked like it was designed for romantic dinners for two, but there was enough space so that up to 6 individuals could sit at the table. In the dining area, there was a small refrigerator and a simple counter and cupboard beneath it. Beverages were in the fridge. Waist-high rails on either side of the tiled entranceway helped delineate the suite's distinct spaces. To one side lay the dining area, to the other, a compact sitting room with a desk and chair set along the inner wall, and a love seat facing the garden. A third rail, identical to the two by the entrance, bore a thick braided velvet rope affixed to its edge, allowing the tapestry to be tied back and giving the suite a greater sense of openness. The luxury of the large bed was obvious. At its foot stood a chest, and near the head a small walk-in closet. Identical night tables flanked the bed, and beside the chest an arched entrance led to an elaborate bathroom, nearly half the size of the suite itself. Near this archway, another thick braided golden rope fastened the second tapestry, so that the garden beyond extended the feeling of space and serenity. While the physical size of the seclusion suite was modest, its design was remarkably sophisticated, crafted to feel larger than it was, and to surround the new couple with sensory delights that gently engaged all 5 senses.
"Do you mind if I write for a short while?"
Ben asked, his tone gentle and unhurried. She shook her head. After he settled at the small desk, she came up behind him, resting her hands on his shoulders and releasing a quiet sigh of relief. The page offered no clue as to what he was writing. The symbols were unlike any she had ever seen. Instead of crossing the page from left to right, the lines descended in clean, vertical cascades, like the tapestry that hung beside their bed, falling in an unbroken sweep to the floor. She was quietly awed by the ease and confidence with which he wrote, each motion deliberate, assured, and beautiful.
"I will teach you how to speak and write the Estolian language,"
he said, his tone warm.
"It is easier than it seems."
With his head bent to the task, the nape of his neck caught her eye, and she couldn't resist the temptation to feather a kiss on his exposed flesh. He swiftly finished the column of text he was working on, then surged to his feet and took her into his arms for another passionate kiss, his writing task forgotten. As their seclusion drew to a close, Kat wondered what the next day would bring. She remembered Ben and Zeke's insistence about her choices. They told her she could choose to reject Ben after 7 days. But she didn't want to reject him. The exquisite way he made love to her, the cherished feeling he gave her, she didn't want to give that up. And yet, she was wary of the emotion others called love. She wasn't sure if she could honestly proclaim a love she didn't yet feel. Was it possible to keep him when asked tomorrow and still reserve the right to end the relationship later? She needed to find out. If her only 2 choices were binding, could she choose Ben and all he stood for? Or should she turn him down because she wasn't sure it would last? One thing she knew, she couldn't bear responsibility for her husband's death. Above all, she wanted him to live a long and fruitful life. She waited in the dining area for Ben to finish dressing. She wore a dress Mandy had bought for her just before her fateful flying lesson. It was a continuation of the tiger stripes the stylist had insisted on colouring her once boring brown hair. But it suited her. The orange and black stripes made her look like an exotic jungle cat. She looked up as Benzeric left the bedroom area and marvelled at the thin band of gold around his head. It looked like a vestigial crown. He touched the band of gold self-consciously at her look.
"Sorry, Cat,"
he said.
"I was told it was required of me. The reason—"
He paused, and she was fascinated by the glow of his blush before he finally continued.
"The reason I must wear it is that, had our history gone differently, I would have been the heir apparent. Even now, if necessary, I might be called upon to fill a hereditary role. It is this blood relation that meant I was given this royal treatment."
He gestured around at the seclusion suite.
"And why I must wear this. The best part about it is that, ultimately, I am unlikely to be called upon to fill those shoes. But I'm not allowed to forget my heritage."
You look very handsome,
Cat said softly. He flushed and looked away, his gaze drifting to the large bed unmade and rumpled from their earlier passion, before the approaching end of their seclusion had required them to shower and dress.
"I used to be one of the acolytes in charge of this suite, keeping it in perfect condition for when it was needed. During the year I oversaw it, it was used many times. It is reserved,"
he said, turning to her,
"for royalty, but when it is not required by any of the royals, it may be requested by any couple marrying in Estolia."
She remembered the extraordinary flavour of the mayberry fruit mingled with the wine, and was not surprised that the sweet was used often.
"It is given unto the least of Estolians to experience all that the greatest take for granted. None is better than another, none is greater. Estolia is a land of equals in fortune, purpose, and posterity. The only inequality that exists is the calling of royalty, to fulfill the promise of Zacharias, that the land may remain as blessed as when Deity first visited Zacharias."
Ben's voice carried the cadence of one reciting a sacred lesson. She had to fulfill her promise to young Miracle Zacharian, had to live up to her earlier declaration that she would remain with Ben unless she discovered hatred in her heart. She crossed over to Ben and placed her hand on his chest, feeling the frantic beating of his pulse.
"I choose to accept you, Benzeric Zacharian, to remain with you, a part of you, for all our days."
But